I will not be the caretaker of a sick old woman. Tom's sharp words sliced through the air, echoed by his sister Lizzie's agreement. Stunned, I exchanged a glance with my brother-in-law, Mark. We were frozen in disbelief. Why don't you and Rebecca take care of her if you're so concerned? We don't need the burden of an old woman in our home. Lizzie spat, her tone dripping with disdain. My husband remained silent, his lack of remorse chilling. How could they discard their own mother so callously, the very woman who had praised and loved them? Anger simmered within me for the first time in my life. But Tom and Lizzie were blind to the surprising truth about my mother-in-law. Rebecca and her family will be taking care of me. Do you think $3 million will cover the cost of care and accessible living accommodations? My mother-in-law's revelation stunned us all, her unexpected declaration hanging heavy in the air. In that moment, Tom and Lizzie unwittingly sealed their fate, oblivious to the consequences of their words. My name is Rebecca. At 40, I found solace in my career as an art teacher, inspired by my parents' artistic legacy. I married Tom, Emily's son, and we raised 2 beautiful daughters, Adam and Kate. Life was peaceful until harsh reality struck. My mother-in-law suffered a stroke. She had always been kind, treating me like her own daughter since childhood. But after Ryder, my father-in-law, passed away, she seemed to lose her spirit. I noticed a change in her demeanor and made it a point to visit her often with my kids. We spent quality time together, even venturing out on outings that lifted her spirits. But one day, I received a frantic call from my children, informing me that she had collapsed. Without a second thought, I rushed to the hospital, hastily explaining the situation to my understanding boss at the art school where I taught. Upon arrival, I was met with a scene that left me speechless. My husband, sister-in-law, and kids were engaged in a heated exchange. Dad, Aunt Lizzie, why would you say something like that? Grandma is your real mom, right? My children's innocent voices pleaded, only to be met with Tom's sharp retort. Shut up. You kids have no business in this. Keep your mouth shut, he shouted. Witnessing my husband berate our children in the hospital, with Lizzie glaring at them, I intervened, desperately trying to diffuse the tension. What's going on here? Calm down, I urged, struggling to catch my breath. But instead of cooperation, Tom and Lizzie unloaded their frustrations onto me and swiftly left. This wasn't the first time Tom had treated our children and me with indifference. Despite his part-time job that kept him occupied for 4 days a week, he failed to contribute significantly to our family's finances. Worse yet, he squandered what little he earned on himself, leaving little for our needs. His absence extended beyond work, with him rarely present at home. Even when he was preoccupied with his phone or lost in a comic book, ignoring my pleas for help with household chores and quality time with our kids. It was a stark contrast to the generosity we had experienced from my parents and lost friends when we first started our family. I never imagined life would take this turn, leading me to question whether I had made the right choice in a life partner. As for Lizzie, she mirrored Tom's indifference towards me, our children, and even our mother-in-law. It wasn't just with her. She had treated my father-in-law the same way when he was alive. Her sole interest seemed to be her job as a hostess, where she entertained young men, neglecting household chores and care for our shared home. Whenever my mother-in-law tried to communicate with Lizzie, she snapped back with disdain, prioritizing her own needs. The saying, "Parents' hearts are unknown to their children," couldn't ring truer in this situation, or perhaps it was even worse. Witnessing such atrocious behavior from my husband and sister-in-law left me speechless. Yet, amidst this turmoil, my main concern remained with my mother-in-law, who was undergoing surgery. Prayers for her well-being filled my thoughts as I navigated through the chaos. Amidst it all, a familiar face arrived at the hospital, someone I had called on our way there. Shane, my husband's younger brother, accompanied by his wife, Maya, and their twin daughters, who were the same age as our children. They were panting and drenched in sweat, having rushed to be with us. Shane had found success as a novelist, his hobby turned career flourishing after one of his novels became a hit online during his university days. He married Maya 2 years after graduating, and they now lived peacefully in the city, away from the family home. She's still in surgery, It's uncertain what will happen. I informed them, grateful for their presence amidst the uncertainty. I wished I could offer words of reassurance, but faced with such unknowns, my attempts felt feeble. However, Shane appeared slightly relieved, a stark contrast to the tension radiating from his older siblings. Unlike Tom and Lizzie, he genuinely cared for us and our mother-in-law. Concerned about her aging and widowhood, he remained in close contact, frequently bringing his family back to check on her. These visits served as a source of comfort and strength for my mother-in-law. My in-laws were inherently kind souls who had always avoided unnecessary conflict with Tom and Lizzie. Sadly, this may have inadvertently contributed to Tom and Lizzie's current demeanor. Yet amidst the discord, Shane emerged as a beacon of decency. Hours later, the surgery concluded, and the doctor ushered us into a small room. We've done all we could. She'll survive, but there will be lingering effects. She'll require round-the-clock care, the doctor disclosed, leaving us breathless. The prospect of my mother-in-law's recovery filled me with hope. Neglecting her care would mean enduring more interactions with Tom and Lizzie than I cared for. Despite our reservations, Shane and I resolved to involve them. After thorough explanation and persuasion, they reluctantly agreed. We gathered at my in-laws' house while my mother-in-law remained hospitalized. Both Tom and Lizzie attended, but their demeanor quickly soared as complaints poured forth. They had openly declared their disinterest in caring for our mother-in-law. "I've taken care of that old hag," Tom said coldly. "Same here," Lizzie chimed in. Those appalling words from my husband left Shane and me frozen. "Brother, sister, don't joke at a time like this. If you won't look after her, what's going to happen to Mom?" Shane asked. "Why should we care? You and Rebecca can take care of her," Lizzie dismissively replied, fiddling with her beautifully manicured nails. Tom nodded in agreement, his face bored and disinterested. "Then we should consider placing her in a nursing home," I suggested. "What nonsense! You're suggesting we use our money for that old woman. A nursing home? Are you kidding? That's just throwing money down the drain," Lizzie snapped, her tone full of disgust. Shane finally erupted at their outrageous remarks. "So, you're seriously abandoning Mom? Not willing to care for her or even put her in a facility? Shane, you're being annoying. If you're so concerned, why don't you and Rebecca take care of her? We don't need a senile old creature around," Lizzie spat, her face twisted in exasperation. Tom showed signs of frustration too. Unable to stay silent any longer, I interjected. "Hold on, what's the meaning of this? She's your mother, and Shane is right. As if we care. Just because she's our mom, why do you assume we have to take care of her? Shane is her son too, so you and Shane can take care of her, Rebecca. You've been caring for her almost every day, right? So looking after her should be a piece of cake for you." Lizzie sneered, smirking in the most disgusting way. I no longer had the energy to argue. Shane felt the same. We decided to bring this issue up with my mother-in-law first. A few days later, Shane and I visited the hospital where my mother-in-law lay. As we stepped into her room, she greeted us with a faint smile, trying to mask her pain. "Oh, Rebecca and Shane, I'm sorry for being a bother," she murmured weakly. Each visit, she would apologize, tugging at our hearts. "Mom, don't say such things. Look, we've brought your favorite grapes and pears. If there's anything else you'd like, just tell us, and we'll get it for you," I reassured her, trying to offer comfort amidst the sterile hospital setting. Though my mother-in-law's spirits had improved, her condition remained precarious. As the doctor had mentioned, she had become paralyzed on her right side, making simple tasks like eating an arduous feat. She needed assistance from the nurses. Facing her fragility, Shane and I shared a silent resolve. We knew we needed to confront Tom and Lizzie again. But before we could approach them, my mother-in-law surprised us with an unexpected request. "Rebecca, could you please fetch my banking card from the drawer of that desk over there?" she asked, her expression solemn. Perplexed, I retrieved the card, wondering why she needed it. She opened it before us, revealing its contents, $3 million. Shane and I were stunned. This revelation would change everything. A few days later, Shane and I summoned Tom and Lizzie for a crucial meeting at the hospital. Though they were disdainful of the venue, their curiosity was piqued when we mentioned that my mother-in-law had important matters to discuss. They likely assumed she had decided to relinquish her home and, of course, the money. When they arrived, they were greeted by a gathering of myself, our children, Shane, and his family. Their expressions soared as they questioned our presence. "Why are all of you here? Mom, we just want clarification. What exactly do you plan to do?" Tom asked, impatience lining his tone. My mother-in-law remained calm and firm. "I have asked Rebecca and Shane to gather you all here because I have crucial matters to discuss about our future," she began, her tone somber. Tom and Lizzie exchanged puzzled glances, unsure of what to expect. "As per your wishes, I will move out once I am discharged. I will no longer show up in front of you or interfere with your lives ever again," she declared, her words hanging heavy in the air. Tom and Lizzie stared at her, their expressions akin to deer caught in headlights. My mother-in-law continued, undeterred by their shock. "Rebecca and Shane have filled me in on everything, the way you called me a burden and planned to cast me out. I know it all." Before Tom and Lizzie could respond, she silenced them with a stern gaze. "In exchange for my departure and our final goodbye, I'm asking both of you to leave the house as well. Naturally, I will be cutting ties and excluding you from any inheritance." The shock on Tom and Lizzie's faces was palpable. Tom and Lizzie exchanged bewildered glances, their expressions darkening as the reality of their situation sank in. They had underestimated their mother and now faced the consequences of their cruelty. "Mom, wait." Lizzie's voice cracked, a desperate edge creeping in. "You can't just cut us out like this. We're family." Tom remained silent, his face pale, but his clenched fists betrayed the storm brewing inside him. "You don't mean this," he finally muttered, his voice low and dangerous. "You can't just leave everything to them." The mother-in-law, undeterred by their pleas and veiled threats, met their eyes with a cold, unwavering gaze. "Family," she echoed, her voice sharp as ice. "Family is supposed to care for one another, to protect and cherish each other. You both have shown me nothing but contempt and selfishness. That is not family, not mine." Silence hung in the room as the weight of her words crushed any argument Tom and Lizzie might have had. They could see the finality in her eyes. There would be no changing her mind. Shane stepped forward, his voice calm but firm. "It's time for both of you to leave. Mom has made her decision, and it's best if you respect it." Lizzie's eyes flashed with fury. "This isn't over," she spat before storming out of the room, heels clicking sharply against the hospital floor. Tom lingered for a moment longer, but his gaze never softened. He turned and followed his sister, their departure heavy with the bitterness of their defeat. Rebecca watched them leave, her heart pounding. She glanced at her mother-in-law, who now looked fragile but relieved, as if a great burden had been lifted from her shoulders. Shane placed a reassuring hand on Rebecca's shoulder, and she nodded, understanding the unspoken bond between them. "We'll take care of everything, Mom," Rebecca said gently. "You don't have to worry anymore." Tears welled up in her mother-in-law's eyes, but she smiled, grateful for the love and care that she still had. "Thank you, Rebecca. Thank you, Shane. I know I can trust you both with this new chapter in my life." Weeks passed, and the transition to her new living arrangements went smoothly. Rebecca and Shane found a beautiful, accessible apartment for her mother-in-law, complete with 24-hour care. The apartment was filled with light and adorned with her favorite flowers, a far cry from the gloom that had once threatened to consume her life. Rebecca continued to visit often, bringing her children along. Her mother-in-law, though still frail, regained some of her old spirit, enjoying the company of her grandchildren and the love of her family. The bond between them grew stronger, built on mutual respect and care. As for Tom and Lizzie, they were forced to reckon with their new reality. Cut off from the inheritance they had taken for granted, they struggled to adapt to their changed circumstances. Lizzie lost her job as a hostess after her antics at work escalated, and Tom's financial irresponsibility caught up with him, leaving him isolated and bitter. One day, While Rebecca was visiting, her mother-in-law took her hand and whispered, "I may not have much time left, but knowing that you and Shane are here for me makes it all worthwhile. Thank you for being the daughter I never had." Rebecca smiled through her tears. "It's an honor, Mom. We'll always be here for you." In the end, the family that stood by love and loyalty found peace and happiness, while those who chose selfishness and cruelty faced the consequences of their actions. Rebecca, Shane, and their families built a future together, bound by the values that truly mattered: kindness, compassion, and unwavering support for one another.